Hey kiddos. How's it going? You doing okay? You having a nice day? Things alright? I hope the audio's okay. Hold on, let me make sure. Okay, yeah, my audio's on. Good. How's it going? You feeling nice? Today, I've decided to revisit an old story. Yes. I was gonna read something else today, but I want to make sure I get permission before I do it because I have a big respect for the stories I want to highlight, so I want to make sure I get permission first. Do everything correctly, you know? So today we're going to revisit the first story I ever read on Tyke Tales as part of our ABDL streams. This one is really fun when I think about it. But what's it called? So we're gonna read through School Secret, a story that I wrote on Tumblr like years ago. So I hope you enjoy. I really wanted to read this one today just because of I don't have it on my archive anywhere. So I want it to be out there somewhere. Also, there are count 'em, two ways you can engage with this stream. You can either be in the chat or some chat there, Picarto, somewhere. I don't know where it is. It's somewhere around here. You can either be in the chat on Picarto, or you can use the hashtag ABDLstream, and I will pop over there and take a look. So. Today, we will read together School Story. Yes, or School Secret. Gosh. I'm a little nervous because I'm going to be trying some new things this time. We'll see how it goes. Oh gosh. Just bear with me, please, as we start the story. I'm gonna lower the BGM. There we go. Let's go to this audio. Yes. Okay. So, together, let's read School Secret. This is part 1. There are 5 parts, and this is part 1. Alright. There we go. Okay. Something jazzy to get us in the mood. Okay. Let me know if the audio is a little funky too. I can adjust it as needed. Okay. Here we go. This is School Secret by me, Peter Chance. Did you hear what Brad told Jessica about the winter formal? Oh my god, spill it. You know how Carlos said that Emily wanted to go in blue? Mark inwardly sighed as he heard his friends gossiping from across the table, forcing a smile as they chattered on and on. He could see that Anthony and Tanner were listening with interest, but he wasn't enjoying it at all. The cafeteria was already uncomfortably warm and obnoxiously noisy. It was filled with students eating trays of preheated meals and sugary drinks. While the rest of the group listened intently about the ensuing drama, the 19-year-old shifted uncomfortably in his seat. No one else seemed to notice that his hands were now firmly in his lap. And then I said that it wasn't what Brad meant, but Carlos was so set on taking Emily that it took everything for Mark to refrain from rolling his eyes out of boredom. He glanced at the other students, trying to feign attentiveness. Being one of the popular kids had its perks, but he would still much rather be with the trendy and overly dramatic popular kids than avoiding bullies and sitting in the background as he had done prior months. It had taken an eternity for him to work his way into the clique, and the teenager wasn't about to put any of that at risk anytime soon. Several secrets about his personal life had been tucked away, hopefully to never see the light of day. In fact, one was centered directly where he sat. Mark suddenly felt a pang of urgency in his bladder, but forced himself to wear a blank expression. He knew that everything was under control. Hidden under his school uniform was a slightly soaked diaper around his crotch. The pressing need was quickly exchanged with relief, and he felt a growing wetness around his midsection. Completely enraptured by their conversations, his companions didn't notice as Mark slowly got up from the table with his backpack in tow. He was relieved to see that his pants appeared to be completely dry. The others didn't even bat an eye as their friend discreetly padded out of the cafeteria. "Looks like I'm safe," Mark thought as he waddled down the hallway. Despite the slight bulge in his crotch of his pants, Mark's nonchalant manner made any passing student completely unaware of anything going on. He quickly made his way towards a remote part of the school, where only a few classrooms were being used. Within minutes, he had walked up a flight of stairs and arrived at a wooden door with a dusty placard. The letters WC had been hastily painted on the front. This restroom was largely unused due to its distant location from the majority of the classrooms, allowing Mark to take full advantage of it. Meant for only one person, it was perfect for whenever he was in desperate need of a change. Mark swung open the door and quickly made sure that the bathroom had no occupants. As the lights flickered on, he glanced into a wall mirror above a lone sink and trash can. The young man's normally peachy complexion seemed to be slightly red, and his green eyes darted around nervously. However, his school uniform seemed to be completely intact. The 19-year-old gave a long sigh of relief. "Made it," Mark thought while slipping out of his khaki pants. He glanced down at his crotch and grinned as he noted the thoroughly soaked diaper around his midsection. The undergarment was swelling with urine, and the printed stars on the front had faded away as the inside became wetter. The feeling of soggy padding made the young man's face burn with excitement. "Looks like I really needed a change," he reflected, while patting the outside of the bulging nappy with his palm. The diaper had lasted past lunch, but it didn't seem like it would be able to hold much more. Quickly unzipping his knapsack, Mark pulled out a clean diaper, a container of baby wipes, and a bottle of baby powder that he had brought from home. The adult-sized padding had a babyish print along the front, depicting a bright red fire truck. Mark smiled at the cute design, eager to put it on. He hastily untaped the diaper he wore and gently cleaned himself up with the baby wipes. The smell of fresh baby powder soon filled the washroom as he powdered himself and put on the new diaper. Mark then folded up the used nappy and wipes and decided to dispose of them in the trash can next to the sink. As he stood up and tossed the diaper into the trash, the door suddenly swung open. Mark immediately froze in horror as another young man absently stepped in and realized that the bathroom was currently in use. The 19-year-old felt a shot of panic set in as he looked at the lock on the door that he had forgotten to set. The other students stared in confusion as he realized that Mark was standing in the middle of the restroom wearing just a diaper and a shirt from the school uniform. Mark looked down at the thickly padded diaper around his crotch and the childish fire truck emblazoned across the front. As the intruder's jaw fell open, Mark uttered a single curse under his breath. "Shit!" Oh no, poor Mark. It's always scary in that situation, being caught. Alright, let's move on to part 2 of School Secrets. Mark glanced back up at the other young man, his mind flying a million miles per minute. He immediately yanked his shirt down with his arms as a last-ditch effort to hide the fluffy diaper around his midsection, but his flailing did little to remedy the situation. The other boy stared at Mark in a daze, clutching the duffel bag he held on his shoulder. It was clear that Mark didn't recognize this kid, but the ginger boy absolutely knew who Mark was. Feeling hot tears springing to his eyes and his face burning red, Mark dove for his clothes. He hastily pulled on his uniform pants and snatched up his backpack. He had to get out of here. He had to. This kid could blab to the whole school, and his friends would abandon him before lunch was even over. Mark's thoughts were interrupted as he realized that the other student hadn't left. In fact, he seemed to be waving at Mark to get his attention. It's okay, the ginger boy hesitantly called. I won't tell anyone. To Mark's shock, the other student closed the door behind him and unbuckled a brown belt around his waist. His pants fell to his ankles. Where Mark expected boxers to be, a soggy diaper with colorful print running along the front sat. The word baby was emblazoned on the surface with bright block letters. I wear them too, the blonde kid said nervously. The nurse said someone else wore them at the school, but I didn't think it'd be you. Mark didn't say anything as he felt his pulse racing. His mind was still desperately trying to figure out what to do. This kid could destroy his reputation if he wanted. All of that work, months of faking interest and proving himself, for nothing. I'm Brian, the other boy said as he pulled his pants back up and fastened his belt. I have to wear them for medical reasons. I have trouble telling if I need to go to the restroom or not. Mark stood by silently, trying to come up with an idea. If it's okay with you, we can just keep this a secret, between the two of us. As Brian spoke, a plan began to form in Mark's head. Defamation. Make it seem like no one should be able to trust what this kid says, he thought. Then, it won't matter what he tries to tell them. Is that okay with you? Brian asked. Mark nodded absently, trying to ignore the growing feeling of panic that wanted to burst from his lungs. I have to do this, he thought. Yeah, sure, Mark whispered back. Just swear to me that you won't say anything. Brian made a face, but nodded. I'll walk you back to the cafeteria, the popular boy replied, almost too fast. Just go ahead and change, and I'll wait for you. Feeling a little wary, Brian nodded and let Mark slip out of the restroom behind him. As he stepped out into the empty hallway, Mark immediately began calculating his plan. He remembered where his friends sat, how far away the door was, and how much time was left during the lunch period. By the time Brian was exiting the washroom, Mark had returned to his calm and cool exterior. Sorry, by the way, the ginger boy said as he was led back to the cafeteria. The door was unlocked but I shouldn't have pried. You're definitely right, Mark thought. It's fine, I understand, were the words that flew out of his mouth instead. By the time the two had finished their trip back to the cafeteria, lunch was beginning to wind down. Mark could see all his friends were still jabbering on and on. He closed his eyes and thought, it's now or never. Before the other boy could react, Mark thrust out his arms and shoved Brian forwards. Students turned to see Mark yelling loudly and Brian swiveling around in confusion. See this kid? Mark shouted angrily as he grabbed Brian by the shirt. He walked in on me in the bathroom. Brian gasped in horror as the room grew silent and all of the other teens stared incredulously. He didn't even leave either. Mark disregarded the look of terror and betrayal painted upon the younger boy's face. I have to do this. I have to. I don't have a choice. He'll out me if I don't, he told himself. It's because this kid is trying to blackmail me, Mark shouted into the cafeteria. The eyes of students were filled with confusion and mixed amusement as Mark shoved Brian further into the room. Brian himself was clearly on the verge of tears. Mark, ignoring the whimpers coming out of the 18-year-old, hooked his fingers into the belt loops of Brian's jeans. Summoning all of his strength, he pulled the khaki fabric down to the ground and shouted, "This loser wears these!" The other students watched in shock as Mark pantsed Brian, revealing a thickly padded diaper around the waist with a childish design printed on the front. Brian wears baby diapers. Oh. That's so sad. I always get nervous reading that because Mark is so mean doing that to Brian. I always feel really nervous about that. Alright, let's jump to our next part. This is part 3. Let's go. Mark took a deep breath as he stood up from the ground and put his hands on his hips. Brian was as still as a statue, the color draining from his face as he realized that his khaki pants had been yanked to his ankles. Laughter erupted from the cafeteria. Students howled and squealed as Brian dove to the ground and struggled to pick up his pants before dashing out of the room. Mark felt a chill run down his spine as he watched Brian disappear out into the hallway. He turned back to face the cafeteria, filled with teenagers doubled over laughing. Anthony and Tanner gave him a thumbs up, chortling at the display. It wasn't uncommon for a popular kid to drive some unsuspecting student into an embarrassing situation. But this time, Mark had a heavy feeling developing in his stomach. A twinge of regret worked its way into his head, but he quickly brushed it off as his friends waved him back over to their table. "Holy fuck, that was fantastic," one of the teens chirped. A girl turned to Mark with a sadistic smile. Was he really a perv? Like he actually snuck into the bathroom with you? Mark gave a confident grin and nodded, although the guilty feeling in his stomach hit him again. "Yeah, he was gross," he piped up while taking a bite of an apple that his friend had tossed him. "That ought to teach him a lesson." A loud school bell reverberated through the room from the intercom, signaling that the lunch period was over. Rambunctious students loudly made their way back to their classrooms, chattering loudly about Brian's shocking choice of underwear. Picking up his backpack, Mark followed his friends back to his calculus class. He took a quick glance at where Brian had stood and then hurried away. As Mark sat in his math class, he could barely pay attention to the lecture that Mrs. Howard taught. Snickers and approving nods towards him would normally be an inviting change, but the young man admittedly felt a little bit uncomfortable with how he had handled the situation. He tried to close his eyes to focus on the words that the professor spoke, but all he could see was Brian's tearful face as he ran from the cafeteria. "It's not gonna matter," Mark thought to himself. "In a week, they'll all forget that this happened." Still, Mark couldn't shake the feeling of dread building in his stomach. The school day seemed to drag on as he watched the clock slowly tick by and by, and he was unable to pay any sort of attention in his classes. Guilt ate away at Mark, making his stomach hurt more and more. By the time the final bell rang, the teen had decided to find Brian and apologize. Gathering up his backpack, he darted out into the halls and searched the crowd of students leaving the building. Unable to find his victim, Mark swiftly made his way down the halls and past emptying classrooms. As he walked towards a set of stairs by the cafeteria, he was startled by a loud noise, followed by a yelp of pain. Whoa. Sounds of flesh hitting flesh and crying were coming from the top of the stairs. Mark took a step towards the noise, but was horrified to see Brian come tumbling down the steps, and painfully landing on the ground next to him. The younger boy struggled to sit upright on the tile floor. Blood was gushing from his nose and onto the shirt of his school uniform, turning the navy sweater a deep purple. Two familiar figures stood up at the top of the stairs, chuckling about their prank. They were Mark's friends, Anthony and Tanner. "What the hell are you doing?" Mark shouted as he jumped in front of Brian. The smaller teen flinched and dragged himself back against a nearby wall. "We're just being friendly," Anthony said calmly. "You want in?" "Leave him alone," retorted Mark. "He didn't do anything to you." Tanner crossed his arms. "He messed with you, didn't he? Plus, he's a diaper-wearing pussy." Mark took another glance at Brian, lying on the floor. An idea flew by and he instantly knew what he had to do. Choking back a sob, he took a step up on the stairs. The feeling in his stomach passed and Mark felt a warmth pass into the seat of his pants. He didn't do anything wrong. It was all me, Mark admitted shakily. Besides, he's not alone. What do you mean? Spat Anthony. The two young men watched from the top of the stairs in disbelief as Mark suddenly gripped the sides of his pants and pulled them down to his knees. A fluffy diaper with a fire truck emblazoned on the front was fully visible. Brian gasped from behind as he realized Mark's diaper was thoroughly soiled and on full display for the surrounding students. "I wear diapers too," Mark bellowed as loudly as he could. "If you want him, you're gonna have to go through me." Oh. Standing up for Brian, I see. Okay. That was part 3. Why don't we move on to part 4? You ready? Let's go! Okay. What the fuck? Tanner exclaimed. You too? Yeah. I wear diapers just like Brian does, retorted Mark. So back off! Anthony stepped forwards menacingly and shouted, "Make me, bitch!" "What's going on in here?" a voice suddenly screeched. The 4 young men froze in their tracks as the stairwell door swung open, revealing a furious Miss Howard. The 40-year-old woman was appalled to see the young men preparing to fight, one without pants and another bleeding on the ground. "My room now," Miss Howard commanded. "Pull up your pants, Mark." Anthony and Tanner sheepishly made their way into the calculus room as Mark turned to face Brian, who was still sprawled out on the ground. He tried to ignore the stares of other students still milling around the area during the commotion. Mark awkwardly offered a hand to help Brian off the ground, which the ginger reluctantly accepted. He wiped the blood running down his face as Mark picked up the duffel bag. "You should pull up your pants," Brian said quietly. Mark blushed and immediately pulled up his khakis. Yeah, sorry." He wanted to give the teen a proper apology, but Brian had already begun walking up the steps towards Miss Howard's room. Mrs. Howard stood at the door of her classroom with her arms crossed and an enraged expression on her face. She ordered the students to find seats and stalked over to her desk. Mark sat down on the desk on the opposite side of the room as Anthony and Tanner. Brian had joined him. Every click of her high heels made the young men wince uncomfortably. They knew better than to say anything at this point. The calculus teacher instantly began a 30-minute lecture over fighting in school and the district's zero-tolerance policy. Anthony and Tanner glared at Mark as they realized Miss Howard had no intention of stopping the tirade, and was instead treating it like a detention. Meanwhile, the mucky mess in Mark's diaper was becoming uncomfortable, and Brian was clearly starting to notice the smell. As Mark squirmed in his seat, he tried to hold back tears. Brian wore an amused grin, feeling slightly better after seeing his classmates' discomfort. He had been in a similar situation before, and he knew that Mark would need to change soon, or else risk getting diaper rash. Another 15 minutes had passed, and the older woman released the teens. Anthony and Tanner immediately left the room, disgusted by their former friend and furious about being held late from their weekend. Mark slowly walked out of the classroom and made his way back to the remote restroom down the hall. He could feel the stares and hear whispers from other students as he ambled away. It hadn't even been an hour after school, and the other teens were already updated about Mark's own diaper situation. His walk turned into a slight jog, as he realized some students were pointing and laughing as he passed. He didn't even turn around, as he realized the pair of footsteps seemed to be following him down the hall. I have to get out of here, he thought. Is this how Brian felt when I pulled down his pants in the cafeteria? As he shoved open the entrance of a restroom, he felt tears staining his cheeks. Mark was about to shut the door when a hand slammed along the side, keeping it from closing. He looked over and was surprised to see Brian staring back at him with a calm expression. Well, we need to talk, the 18-year-old said firmly. Mark blinked and was surprised to see Brian once again step into the bathroom with him. He locked the door and watched as Brian unzipped his duffel bag and pulled out what looked like a blanket. He tossed the changing pad onto the ground and directed Mark to sit on it. Feeling rather docile, Mark complied. Brian sat down in front of the mat and laid Mark down onto the ground. Before he could react, the younger student untaped Mark's diaper and began talking. I really wasn't going to tell anyone, Brian muttered as he pulled out his own set of baby wipes and began cleaning Mark's crotch. All I wanted was the same respect, and you couldn't even give me that. Mark tried to stammer out an apology, but was immediately silenced as Brian applied another cold wipe to his rear. See this bruise? Brian asked as he motioned to his face. Anthony gave me that when he said I harassed you in the bathroom. Tanner called me disgusting, a waste of life. The younger boy removed the messy diaper and easily lifted Mark's legs to place a clean one underneath him. Now they won't shut up about me wearing diapers either, all because I trusted you. Brian applied powder to the boy's crotch and taped up his diaper. But we can't change the past now, can we? Mark didn't reply. Guilt and regret were written across his face, plain as day. Brian sighed and helped the boy off of his changing pad. The only thing we can do now is move forwards, and I'd rather do that together than alone. Mark nodded and bit his lip. I'm so sorry, he whispered. Tears began to freely stream down his face, and he pulled the smaller boy into an embrace. Brian let the young man cry on his shoulder for a few minutes before giving him a pat on his diapered bottom and handing him a paper towel. You did a really dickish thing to me today, Brian said as Mark wiped his face. But I'm not gonna let you go through this alone. I know what that's like. So we're in this together. Mark coughed and nodded slowly, collecting himself. Walking out of the bathroom together is really gonna suck, he said quietly. Oh yeah. Mark grabbed Brian's hand and leaned over to stare at him directly in the eye. I don't care though. We're gonna stick together, no matter what. Brian's eyes softened and he suddenly felt a little bashful. No matter what, he blushingly repeated as he nodded his head. No matter what. Reconciliation. It's always the nicest part of the story, when things work out. Almost done. Wow, this is gonna be a short stream today. But let's reach part 5. I think I'm reading fast because I'm nervous. I haven't done a reading stream with BGM before, so we'll see how it turns out. Okay, let's jump to part 5. Last part. We'll end the story on a good note. There we go. Hey, save some for me, Brian shouted, as Mark eased another scorching piece of pizza onto his plate. I will. Mark smirked as he watched Brian waddle next to him and pick up a slice. Unable to resist the urge, he gave the teen's diapered bottom a playful swat. Easy, Tiger, or else I'll destroy you in Mario Kart again, Brian warned. You just got lucky. That blue shell was totally unfair. You didn't say that the last time you got it. Mark laughed and bit down into the cheesy pizza, thinking about the past few weeks as he munched away. It had been 3 months since he and Brian had discovered to be wearing diapers by the rest of the school. At first, there had been incessant teasing from his former friends, and Mark had often found himself back at the bottom rung of the school's totem pole of popularity. After a while, though, the buzz around the school shifted to the winter formal, and the events of the diaper fiasco were turned into a weird, almost forgotten memory. Brian had stuck with Mark throughout it all, from bullying and occasional accidents to staying at each other's houses overnight, and the two quickly became inseparable. The school had also called Mark's parents in relation to Brian's bullying, after a long punishment session with his father and a full apology to his new friend. Mark and Brian reconciled. Their parents sorted out a system for the two to have access to the diapers and changing supplies that they needed while at school. Brian and Mark found themselves swapping nappies with cute designs, helping each other change. The old bathroom became a meeting place for the teens, allowing them some privacy and time to take care of each other. 3, 2, 1, go! A loud buzzer sounded on the television screen in front of him. Mark gasped as he realized Brian had taken advantage of him spacing out and was starting another race. Hey, wait for me, the older boy cried as he snatched up a nearby controller. Brian giggled and scooted closer to Mark. The two had become comfortable enough with each other that they often spent their gaming sessions in nothing more than t-shirts and diapers. Brian's father had bought the two sippy cups of juice in an attempt to keep them from spilling snacks on the floor. Again, both of which sat next to their plates of pizza. While their fathers talked in the living room and watched a movie, Mark and Brian spent their time playing video games in Brian's room. As Mark eagerly advanced up into second place, he barely noticed the wet spot growing on the front of his diaper. By the time he scooted into first place, he could feel the insides of the diaper squishing around his bum. Brian tried to maneuver his character into the lead, but Mark was far too ahead for anything to be done. Within seconds, Mark had ended the race in first place. Suddenly, there was a knock at the door. Brian's wooden door swung open, revealing both of their fathers standing in the hallway. Hey boys, Brian's father called. We've been talking in the other room and wanted to know if you wanted to stay the night. Yeah, Mark cheered. Can I, Dad? Can I? Mark's father grinned. We're actually both going to stay the night, kiddo. Brian's dad and I are going to be in the living room. Do you mind if Mark stays in your room tonight, Brian? Brian immediately shook his head and smiled widely. Great. Let's get you boys ready for bed then, Brian's dad exclaimed. Good. I think I could use a change, said Mark. He glanced at Brian and put his hand on Brian's hand. He grinned as Brian bashfully leaned into his shoulder and intertwined his fingers. Together? He asked, as the two stood up holding hands. together. Yay! That was School Secret. Yes, that's the whole story. All 5 parts. I want to read more and more stories in the future. Yes. Definitely not all written by me. I need to get over my fear of talking to people and just be honest and be like, hey, is it okay if I read your story on stream? I just need to ask that. If you have any stories that you've written, by the way, feel free to send them in, because I will read them, and it'd be fun to read some of those on stream too. Yeah. That's mostly it for today. Let me think. Tomorrow, Tomorrow, I think we're gonna be doing a drawing stream. Yeah. It'll be nice and it'll be fun. It makes me, excited for the future. Oh, also, I hope you guys have a nice day today. It is Memorial Day, so I hope you have a fun day if it's a 3-day weekend where you are. I know for a lot of people it is in the United States. I completely forgot it was today until just recently. So, I hope you have a nice 3-day weekend, if that's where it is coming. I think I was gonna try to grill something for Memorial Day, like food, but I don't know if that's gonna be possible because it looks like it might rain. But we'll see. Okay. Okay. I think that's mostly it. Let me put on that. Turn that off. There we go. Okay. I hope you had a wonderful time with me. I had a lot of fun reading the story. I wanna read lots more stories in the future. Yeah. And I'll try to be less nervous. We'll see how it goes. So, in the meantime, I hope you have a nice day. I plan to stream a lot longer tomorrow. But today I want to do something real quick, real fun. Okay. Until next time then. Bye-bye! Follow me on Twitter at Chase Kakaru. Yes. Cause, that is where I'll be posting the archive for this stream. Yes. Oh, and also, follow me on Tumblr, which is, searchingformydaddy.tumblr.com. It's in the description of this Picarto video. Yes. And of my Picarto channel. Yes. Both of those have some pretty important information. So feel free to check those out. I think I'm just streaming every day this week. We'll see. Okay. I'll see you later. Have a good one. And until next time. Bye-bye! I will see you around. Adios! That was fun. That was scary. I hope the BGM turned out okay. I hope it wasn't too loud. Let me know if it was too loud. Nice bottle. Nice bottle.